I will tell you about my latest attempt to try to beat my automatic methods in CASP. And I actually been trying to do this for 30 years, and to be honest, it has been a completely failed story. So this is a tragedy. However, another tragedy was what happened yesterday. This is what I saw my plane leaving without me because it was foggy in Frankfurt and my arrival plane was late. I tried to get here, but all planes were full, so I am basically delayed by 28 hours. So hopefully we'll see you tonight. So this is where I am, in a quite boring hotel next to the Autobahn in Frankfurt. And this is where you are and where I would like to be. I hope you really enjoy your stay right there. Okay, back to science. So what did I do in CASP 16? I just used the AlphaFold 3 server and like anybody else can have done it, basically. In total, I think I generated 13,230 models. That means I run about 25 jobs per day, or more some days, up to 60 jobs per day. I used actually 3 different Google accounts just to be a bit, I borrowed my son's and I had one office and one private account. And then I generated different number of models for different targets. For most targets, I generated about 50 models, so around 10 runs. But for the T1200, T1300, I generated 500 models, so around 100 jobs. And for R1254, which was a big complex target, I generated in total 380 models. So there was a variation of this. My pipeline in general was like that. I run AlphaFold 3, and then I spent about 5 minutes to wait for results, and I then uploaded it. I ran a script, add the headers, and uploaded it to CASP. That's more or less everything I did. There were a couple examples, and exceptions to this. For big models that was more than 5,000 residues, I could not run them as parts. Then I divided into smaller parts, and I used the ideas from our MOL PC algorithm to merge them together, basically superposing the overlapping parts and put it together. And I put them, yeah. And then there was a problem with RNA models, as you can see here to the right. A lot of them looked like that, so they were overlapping completely. This is, even I could realize that this is not the correct RNA model. This would, so I actually run several predictions sometimes and had a script that checked for overlap and submitted models with minimal overlap. I'm not sure that helped a lot, but at least was maybe did not hurt at least. And for ligands, you were not allowed to run these ligands with AlphaFold 3 server. So I identified the most similar or some similar ligands in the ones that were possible to run. And I ran the server with that ligand, and then I just superposed the correct ligand in the default configuration and replaced it on the one I had run with. I noted that most ligands always end up in the same place, so I assumed it was not too bad, but I didn't do any minimization or anything else to optimize it or any scoring at all. It was just superposition. For my manual prediction, the Elofsson ones, I spend most of the time actually probably on stage 0, so I tried to guess the stoichiometry. In AlphaFold 3, I just run different stoichiometries and I picked the one with the highest PTM. In Elofsson, I did the same, but I run maybe a bit more stoichiometries, and I also used maybe some other criteria, mainly like some manual judgment. And I think there was a couple of cases where I actually got it correct. And in particular, I maybe submitted things with more variation than in AlphaFold 3, but even the first rank I think was slightly better. In stage 1, I noticed stoichiometry, so I ran 10 AlphaFold 3 predictions. In most cases, I only used the top ranked from each of these 10 runs and took the 5 ones with the highest PTM or AlphaFold 3 scores, whatever score they had. And that was, yeah, so I thought that would give you more variability and then I'm using AlphaFold 3. But as you can see, we'll see later, that's not really the case. I also did the same thing for big or difficult or these mixed models. I try things like removing disorder regions, running without them, cutting into fragments, cluster it sometimes, and things like that to get things together. This is a managed suggestion. So I thought that this should help things. Stage 2, I didn't do anything. I just basically uploaded the same things as stage 1. I think I missed 1 or 2, but otherwise there shouldn't be any difference. This is the results I got first. In the first rank model, we were ranked like number 2 and 3 and 4. And you can see that AlphaFold 3 was ranked ahead of Elofsson, but just slightly. And it looked pretty good, I would say. And I guess it's Young that is high, ranked higher. And the best models we ranked slightly lower. Other people could generate things with more variability and generate not top-ranked models, but better than us. But there are also like a handful of group just. And in this case, Elofsson was slightly better than AlphaFold 3, but the difference is marginal. So then we have the results from the web server or from the homepage yesterday. You can look into the details and domains. AlphaFold 3 was ranked before Elofsson if you do set scores. I mean, this is slightly depends what score you use, but it was probably consistently slightly ahead of it. So I did not do anything better. I haven't, yeah. If you got oligomers or multimers, Elofsson did not appear on the list at all. So here clearly AlphaFold was better for some reason. I don't really know what happened to Elofsson here, but it seems to be significantly worse. Which is not agreeing with my own evaluation. For RNA and DNA monomers, it clearly is 3 groups that are significantly better than the rest. And then AlphaFold 3 and Elofsson are somewhere in the top 10, but it's not. Clearly there are at least 3 groups that are significantly better. So we will hear about that tomorrow, I hope. For the multimers, there are even more groups that are better than AlphaFold 3. So there clearly are some work in RNA that is clearly ahead of AlphaFold 3, I would say. But still is in top 10. And still AlphaFold 3 is better than Elofsson. So my manual work did not work at all. So I guess I should stop doing that. Okay, the good result was for evaluation of the quality. And then, of course, AlphaFold is pretty good at knowing when it's right and when it's wrong. And there was only PLM fold that could do a better job of that. Okay, a bit more details. So if you took, ligands first. So in ligands, you can't see these predictions because I am unable to read instructions. So I submitted the ligands in PDB format and not in the correct format. So they are not evaluated at all. But I might try to do my own evaluation later when the models are released, because it's just basically running a small script to change it. But yeah, but it would be interesting to know how well the ligands have performed. Yeah, if you look at more detail, if you look at the individual chain, individual domain evaluation, I can't see any difference between Elofsson and AlphaFold 3. There are some variation, but it's probably just noise. You pick one model or another. So they say most models are pretty good. It's like 50 plus, but there are a couple that are bad. And this doesn't matter if you use best or not, or first rank model, it looks the same. If you look for oligomers, the docu scores basically around that, you see there are a couple of targets where there's difference between AlphaFold 3 and Elofsson. In particular, if you look at the best model, there's one model T1240 where AlphaFold 3 did a better job than Elofsson. And it's actually model ranked number 2. And you can see it on the next slide. So to the left is the AlphaFold 3 model ranked number 2. And you see that the orientation of these 2 domains is clearly better in this model than it is in the other Elofsson model, in this case, on all other models. But this is a very small part of a big protein. So this is, and it is actually trimer also, I think. So it's only one out of these 10 models are submitted, 5 for each, that happens to have slightly better ranking. There's like 1 angstrom instead of 2 angstroms RMSD. So it's clearly a better prediction. But I would just assume that this is a coincidence that it happened to be better with AlphaFold 3. But it shows that there is a value in running multiple models and trying to find the best one. And it's not that hard to believe that AlphaFold 3 cannot rank them, because this is just 2 domains out of, I mean, maybe it's 20% of the protein. So the PTM will not focus on this area. In a comparison between my round 0 versus predictions, you see there are a few models where Elofsson did better. So in a few cases, at least 3, I picked a better stoichiometry than default. So you can maybe do something more than to go to the PTM scores. If you look at the stoichiometries between round 0 and round 1, or the docu scores in round 0 to round 1, you can see that both Elofsson and AF3 improved in round 1. So there are cases where we picked the wrong stoichiometry. There are more cases for AF3 than for Elofsson. So there are at least 4 or 5 cases where I picked the wrong stoichiometry. But in about 60% of the model of the cases, I picked the right stoichiometry. If you look at my difference between my first model and the best of the 5 I submitted, if you look at GDTHA, there is not a big difference. There are a few models where Elofsson, TS241, is improved. So I managed to get some improvement in variability in these cases, but there are only very few cases, and the improvement is quite small. It goes from like 50 to 70 GDTHA. If you look at DocQ, there's bigger variation for more targets, and both for Elofsson and for AF3. So there clearly is a value. So you have cases that go from 0.1 DocQ to 0.9 DocQ if you take the best model out of the 5 you submitted. So they clearly, AlphaFold 3 is not able to always rank the first multimeric model correct. If you compare other types of models like RNA and things like that, you can see in general here to the left in the violin plot, of course, that the T models, the single domains of proteins are pretty good. The oligomeric one has good and bad ones. The RNA are almost exclusively bad. The mixed are looking like the oligomeric ones more or less. The homomers are pretty good also. And DNA model, the only one I think was pretty bad. So in general, RNA models and some oligomers can't predict it, and some mixed models can't predict it. And if you compare Elofsson to IFC server, there are a few models that are different, but they are not that many. This is like, for instance, an RNA model R1285 that is better. But they're not a huge difference. And if you compare to some other servers, you can, for instance, compare to Massive Fold, you see that there are quite a lot of models where AF3 is better than Massive Fold. There are a few models that Massive Fold is better also, but not only 2 or 3. And but if you look at average, this is only comparing models that both are run, and there are many of the hard models that contain the mixed things that the Massive Fold didn't run, or at least not integrated well on, so they are not included there. So if you look at average scores, actually Massive Fold scores are higher. But there's a number of models where AF3 has improved over AF2, so that's quite good to know. Compared to Young server, which I guess is one of the best ones from what I've seen, it is a number of models where Young has improved over AlphaFold 3. There are a few that he did worse also, but on average, it's clearly better predictions. So I really sad that I could not hear this talk, but I will try to pick you in the bar and figure out what you did. Okay, acknowledgement. It's one big acknowledgement, and that's the AlphaFold 3 server. All this work was basically done there. I had some small scripts running things, for very, very minor. And that's it. And thank you, and enjoy the beach and everything. And thanks for listening.